Hello and welcome back to Currently Kent. Today, new project underway. Going to be making some changes, so been in the Phanteks Evolve X for a little while and have detailed pretty much everything I've done to it up to this point. The only thing I didn't do a video on was the platform change. Went with Ryzen not long ago. I've been using it for about the last week and really been pretty amazed by what it's capable of. So today we're going to do two things. Primarily, the Waterblock's going to get switched out. I have a EK Waterblock in there right now and went with a company out of Chicago named Optimus, and they have the Foundation block, which I have right here for the CPU for the AM4 socket. And the next upgrade that I'm doing is pretty exciting as well. I'll be moving into the Lian 011 Dynamic XL case, so stay tuned. So you're probably wondering why I've sandwiched myself between these two massive cases. Well, I thought maybe a little compare and contrast would be nice. On this side we have the 011 Dynamic XL, and over here we have the Phanteks Evolve X. So just as far as size goes, they're roughly the same to my eye here. The next thing I wanted to talk about is what comes in the packaging when you get them outside of the large box that they come in. They both did really well with packing materials. The outside of the box that this case came in, the 011 Dynamic, had a little, looked like somebody maybe had kicked it or something like that, but the case was perfectly intact, no damage at all. After opening the box, with Phanteks you're greeted a little differently than with Lian Li's case. So I'm gonna take this down for a second and do a little bit more of a focused conversation about what's going on with Phanteks. Immediately after opening the box, right on top of the case is another box inside of it. Inside of the box is your accessories kit. The accessories kit is all very well contained. You have all of the things that basically come along with the case inside of here. This is 4 hard drive sleds that come in there, and then also you get, my favorite part of every Phanteks case that I've gotten so far is they give you this really awesome tray that helps keep all the screws and nuts and everything you're going to need to build inside the case nice and organized. In fact, I keep these after I've built whatever I'm building inside the case, and I'm able to use them on down the road, along with just a magnetic screw catching tray. Super handy. As far as what you get with Lian Li, on the other hand, very standard actually. It looks a lot more like the other cases that I've had, where inside of one of the hard drive sleds in the case you get just kind of a white box. The manual itself, there are some photos in here, so I mean that's nice, but with Phanteks they're full color. It's just an overall, I guess, better experience for the accessories that come along with the case. Now, the Phanteks cases that I've had, two Phanteks cases so far, they both are extremely high quality. just to build in. You can tell the metal is machined very well. The finish is very nice. The glass is great. I have no complaints. The only reason that I'm going into the O11 Dynamic XL is for the added radiator support. So we'll get to that here in a second. Right. So here's how I usually go about getting it out of the box. Open up the top first. We're gonna flip it down onto the table, cut open the other side. Then the flaps that it comes with, you actually wanna pull the flaps out instead of having them in. You pull the flaps out and that gives you a little bit of something to grip and allows the case to come right on out. Before we move on, thought I'd take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the different styles of tubing involved in a custom loop. So you've got a few different choices. Softline tubing and hardline tubing. I'm just gonna put them into the two categories for simplicity's sake, since they share a lot of characteristics. The first thing is the soft tubing is just that. It's soft, it's flexible, fits into places pretty easily. Very similar to an all-in-one liquid cooler or AIO. This is a fitting for softline tubing. This is a compression fitting. So there's a collar on the outside. When we loosen that, then inside, right here, there is some threading to basically hold your softline tubing in place. So way this works is the collar will go around the tubing. Fits on just like that, and you can slide it out of place as you're working with it. Make life easier for yourself. Then the other end goes on the inside of the tube. And then basically from there, you're gonna take the collar, slide it down onto the threads and tighten. Once it's tightened, you can pull on it for everything it's worth. It's not coming off of there. The other end is another male end, and that'll go into either your CPU block, your GPU block. It can go into the radiators, or basically anything with what they call a G in 1/4 or G in 1/4 style fitting. It's a standard across most of the water cooling components, like the different blocks and radiators and pumps and reservoirs. Same end you'll find on the end of the hardline tubing fitting. This one's quite a bit smaller. These are both made by Bitspower. So with the hardline tubing, it's a little different in how it ends up actually holding the tubing in place. So this one unscrews, and I do it upside down for a reason. I'll show you in a second. The reason doing it upside down is inside of the top part of the fitting is a little O-ring, and inside of the bottom is another O-ring. So what ends up happening, I'll do it outside of how I would normally do it, but just for visual purposes. The way it works is you're gonna have this screwed into, let's say, your CPU water block or your GPU water block or radiator or pump and res for that matter. Then this is screwed into that section. Then your tubing, after you've bent it into shape, is going to go into the fitting, and you'll feel it, and you can hear it there probably. It clicks into place. It won't always click into place, but in this instance it clicked into place, and it already has a pretty good hold on it there. That's that inner O-ring holding it into place. Now, it does come out, So what we do to make sure that it's going to stay in place is take the collar, go around the tubing, apply the O-ring, and I like to give the O-ring a little bit of room. I mean, we're not talking about much. I don't want this thing to have to travel the whole length of my run of the tube, but I want to give it enough room to where after I place it inside the inner part of the fitting, it's pretty close there. Then I'm going to take the collar and tighten that down. You don't have to tighten it down as tight as you can get it. I mean, you'll feel it when it's right. Then from there, again, I'm giving this about everything I have until it finally comes out of there. So it'll definitely be enough to keep your tubing from spraying coolant all over your expensive electronic equipment that you're trying to keep cool. Some things to consider if you're going to be doing a custom loop for the first time. I started with hardline tubing and have moved over to softline tubing. I think most people end up doing it the other way around. It's recommended to them to start with the softline tubing and go over to hardline tubing. And I can see why. The hardline tubing, it looks very nice once it's all done. It takes a lot of work. You have to get a lot of extra equipment. You need a heat gun. You need the insert that goes inside of the tube, so as you're heating it up and getting it to bend, the inside of the tube doesn't collapse. You need to buy double the amount of tubing that you think you would need because, let's face it, it's the first time you've done something. You're gonna make mistakes. You're not gonna quite get your bends in the right spot, or maybe the bend didn't get to the correct angle to make it from where you're going to where you're headed. The fittings are definitely the thing that was the most difficult for me, was just knowing what is it that I actually need to get all this done, and how many of them do you need. I mean, that one's pretty basic math, but there's some definite hiccups that can come up if you don't seek some sort of counsel from somebody who's done it before. So I'd recommend, watching as many videos as you can on this subject before deciding to purchase any of your equipment. And then also, considering the differences between the hardline and the softline tubing is another one for you. I'm gonna stick with softline tubing. In fact, I've got another kit of softline tubing. This is kind of a standard black, like it's glossy black. So I've got a set of matte black tubing over there for this build that I'm about to do, which is my personal rig. If you're watching this video because you're trying to learn a little bit about what it takes to build a full custom loop, and you have any questions, I didn't cover everything in super detail. This video is not a dedicated tutorial on the differences between the styles of tubings and fittings and how to build and plan your loop. I've done a video about that in the past. You can maybe learn from a couple of the mistakes that I made. I'll see if I can put a card up here somewhere and link you to that video. If not, you can go over to my channel and it'll be in there. There's only like 6 videos, so it shouldn't be hard to find. It's the one that has to do with my first custom loop. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have about components you might need, how many fittings you might need, benefits of the different style of tubings. I'll be sure to answer your questions down there. So let's get back to the build. Here it is, the completed build in the O11 Dynamic XL from Lian Li. Gonna get some nice footage of it here so you can take a look at it a little bit more in depth, and then we'll talk a little bit about my experience building in this case after that. Now that everything's done, I kind of wanted to go over my thoughts on the Lian Li O11 Dynamic XL. There's a lot of really good things about this case. I am a big fan of the two-chamber design. Basically, all of your cables and your power supply and everything is in a separate chamber from all of the other components: motherboard, CPU, graphics card, radiators, fans. On that note, the inside of the case is very spacious. There was plenty of room for all of the things that I needed to put inside of it. I think if I'd gone a little bit bigger on any of the other radiators, thicker one direction, wider, or anything like that, I would have had even more struggles. There were a couple things that kind of got in the way a little bit. For instance, the top radiator, putting that in there. I have a set of custom sleeved cables. I wasn't able to use the two 8-pin EPS connectors in the top because the cable stuck out too far. So I had used the cables that came with the Seasonic power supply because they're flat cables and it would not foul once I put the top radiator with the fans in. Down in the bottom, because I have it set up with the push-pull configuration with the fans and the bottom radiator, I wasn't able to install one of the two front panel USB 3.0 connectors, and this is partially Gigabyte's fault as well. They put both of the USB 3.0 connections down on the very bottom of the board, which, as you can see, that's where this bottom radiator goes in. If you were to get a thick radiator and two fans, you'd have the same issue. Basically because the plug is, what is that, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches just in itself, and then the cable that sticks out of it. Pretty much anybody that's built a PC has a pretty solid hatred for the way that the USB 3.0 plugs for the front panel are. I was able to plug one set of them in because I have a 90-degree extension that I got from CableMod. So I was able to get one set in there. I'll have to live with it, I guess, only having two front panel USB 3.0 ports. I'm one of those weird people that uses it because as I make videos from here, that's where my SD card goes in, right into the front panel right there. Makes it easy for me to change in and out. Another thing that I really liked about this case is how easy the panels are to take off and put back on. It is with a little bit of a caveat though. So you have to take off the top panel, which is very easy to remove. It's just two thumb screws. There's a little button back here. You push that, it pops right off, no problem. Then the front panel with the front panel, the glass panel, and the back panel all come off the same way. There's basically two clips in the bottom that keep it housed, and then there's little pegs up here in the top that slide down into some cutouts into the frame of the case. So once this is off, these panels are not going anywhere until you just pick it up from the bottom, gently pick it up from the bottom. You don't have to touch the glass, which is nice because then you don't have to worry a whole heck of a lot about fingerprinting. And then to put it back on, real simple, just get it close to position, slide it down in, and it locks into place. Put your top panel back on. These thumb screws are captive, so they'll stay with it, which is really nice. The build quality. Yeah, the build quality on this case is very nice. I mean, I'm coming from a case that already has very, very high build quality with the Phanteks Evolve X. All aluminum, very nicely machined. All of the The venting, all of the venting has the exact same pattern in it. There are some negatives that I wanted to mention as well. The first thing is, this is something you have to deal with when you buy this case, is that all of the O11 Dynamic XLs are ROG or ROG certified, which is a division of ASUS, their Republic of Gamers. This emblem is etched into the glass. Luckily, I know how to fix that, so maybe that'll be a future video coming up of making a little bit of a different etching in there. Then the other thing was, for a case that is this good, there's one bracket down here at the bottom that makes mounting radiators to it very, very easy. Put all the fans and radiators and everything onto it, and then just slide the whole bracket with all the fans and radiators onto it back into place. It makes your life way, way easier, because I'll be honest, I completely struggled putting in the vertical radiator right here, the 360mm radiator, because on the back side there are 3 fans, 320mm fans, and I was trying to reach around the case to hold the radiator in position while trying to hold the fan and get the screws started to go through so it could be mounted into place. And then I wanted to move it up or down a little bit from there, and it was very difficult. The top doesn't have a bracket either, so the top and the vertical location, if they were to have a radiator bracket, I think that would just make this a completely stellar case. It already is very great, and I'm really happy with it. So those were just 2 things I thought maybe, you know, why do we need this logo right here? There is another logo on the inside that I'm happy to see in there. It's from Lian on the top, and then Der Bauer. He's one of my favorite YouTube tech reviewers. I guess you wouldn't call him a tech reviewer, but he's the man. And so having his name on the inside of the case isn't bad. But I don't have any ASUS products at all, and I don't intend to get any. So I guess technically I do have one ASUS product, but it's just this little etching on the glass. But like I said, overall, very, very happy with how everything came out, and I'll be doing some testing after this and maybe some further modifications to it, but definitely scaled back a lot on the RGB, going a little bit more tasteful and performance oriented. My intention is to have every one of these fans that's in here running somewhere around about 500 or 600 RPM. I'd really like this to be as silent as possible, so I'll see if I can make that work within SmartFan 5 from Gigabyte. I haven't had a lot of success with it so far, but anyway, maybe I'll make a little follow-up video to this one with some benchmarks and performance results with the, oh, by the way, that Optimus CPU block in there, that thing, it just looks so good, and it is very high quality, super easy to install, supporting, you know, an American company, American made product, always a good thing. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.